right, so here we are taking a look at some steps for completing the square, if you're a steps kind of a person. I'm going to work through the steps as I do this example. So just so we know, this is in standard form right now. This is my y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So if we're going through this, my b value is negative 10. My c value is that 27. And my a value is that coefficient in front of it, which we all know to be a 1. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to rewrite the equation so your variables are grouped together. You want to group the variables together. Basically the x terms, not the y. So y equals parentheses x squared minus 10x close parentheses plus 27 on the outside. Group the variables together. Step 1, done. This next step, steps 2 and 3, these two steps put together are you finding the magic number. And I call it a magic number because I don't have a better word for it. But this number, this magic number, is the number that completes the square. You know, when we're talking squares, like perfect squares, 4, 16, 25, 36, x squared is a perfect squared. So we're finding a number, this magic number, that completes the square for this quadratic equation that allows us to write it as something quantity squared, you know, x plus something or x minus something quantity squared. So to find this magic number, you are going to take half of the b value. And then you're going to square it, so you end up with b divided by 2 quantity squared. I always recommend doing that magic bubble or that magic number work in a bubble off to the side of your paper. It doesn't have to be a bubble. If you know, bubbles are too whatever for you, then just put it in a box. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I like bubbles because bubbles are fun. Or clouds. They're not bubbles, they're clouds. Anywho, so my b value here is negative 10. Remember to keeping that sign with it. So negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. I know I can do that in my head, and I know most of you can also, but there's a reason that I'm writing that out. That negative 5 is going to come back to help us later. Making sure that you're putting this in parentheses when you're squaring it to get a positive 25. If you put negative 5 squared without the parentheses into your calculator is going to give you back a negative 25, which we know is not true. You need to have those parentheses. Okay, magic number found. Next step is you're going to take that magic number that you just found, and you're going to add this quote-unquote magic number to the parentheses. I guess I was intended to write out the word number. That's why I gave myself so much room. Take that magic number, that b divided by 2 quantity squared, and add it to the parentheses and subtract it from c, aka the constant. All right, that's wordy, but it makes sense when you do it. So the magic number was 25. So I'm adding 25 to the inside of my parentheses. And pause for a second, because once we do that, remember back to old school 7th grade, we have an equation right now where two sides are equal. If I took and added 25 to one of those sides, but didn't do it to the other side, my equation is no longer balanced and it is no longer equal, and that screws everything up. So to keep this balance, instead of adding 25 to the other side, I'm just going to undo what I already did. So I added 25 to this side. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 25 from that 27, that c, that constant on the outside, and that's going to keep my equation balanced. Okay, so let's rewrite. Now we have y equals x squared minus 10x plus 25. And you'll see now inside of those parentheses we have a trinomial, which we just spent all of last unit factoring. So we'll be able to factor this trinomial into two binomials. 27 minus 25 is going to be a positive 2. Okay, so old school factoring here. Factors of 25 are just 1 and 25 and 5 and 5. So I know I need to be using 5. So x 5, 5 has to be a negative 10, so they both have to be negative. Now, I took the long way of going about doing that. There's a trick to this factoring. This is always going to factor in to whatever half of your b value was. So last step here tells you to factor the parentheses into x plus b divided by 2 quantity squared. So y equals x minus 5 quantity squared, because there's 2 of them, plus 2. There you have your equation in vertex form. This gives you a vertex of 5, 2, which means that it was shifted up 2 and to the right 5. The axis of symmetry equation would be x equals positive 5. And you might be wondering, why do we keep taking the opposite? Why are we making the 5 positive but not the 2? And again, if you go back to the equation, that shifted form equation right here, in this equation, that is negative h or minus h. So if I plug in a negative h to a negative h, that makes it positive and changes that sign. So that's why we're only taking the opposite of the x piece inside the parentheses. Whew.